Hello everybody. Today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of doing a review, I'm actually going to do a tip video. And I feel like this is a good time since I've gotten a lot of requests to do so, and it's been a pretty big gap between my last video. I do apologize for that. So let's get started here. So what I'm going to be discussing today is the starting of a model car collection. This is just from the experience that I've gotten over the many years that I've been collecting, and I thought it'd be helpful since many of my subscribers actually are starting a collection for themselves. So let's get started here. So basically, one of the most important things I'm going to be discussing is a collection path, and that's basically how you want to continue your collection into the future. So basically what you want to do is you want to kind of figure out, well, what type of models do you want to collect, what do you plan to use the models for, and what's your budget range. Now as time progresses, I promise you your preferences will change for model cars. They have totally for me. One being price range. When I started my collection, budget was definitely an issue. So I was purchasing all exclusively budget cars. And then as time progressed, I started to be able to justify purchasing a more expensive car like this Celica here, which cost me $95. To this day, it's actually my most expensive one. And I mean, the fact that this is my most expensive one, it is still budget in a sense, because most of these cars similar to it cost around $150, and I haven't quite got to that point where I can justify that price, but I'm sure it will happen in time. Along with price, you're also going to look at quality. What might have satisfied you 3 years ago as far as detail on the interior might not satisfy you today, and I have seen that as well. I've gotten a lot more critical in my reviews and in the way I look at these models, because my view has been broadened by auto arts and different manufacturers that have really stepped up the bar. So that's definitely something. I mean, one of the things, I used to always buy Motor Maxes just because I knew them well. They're sort of well built, and I thought they were great, but now I realize there's a lot better options out there. So the way I see it, there's like three different paths you can follow, one being a display path, and this is probably the most common for most people, and this is basically what I do with a little bit of modification. So it essentially means that you're putting your car on display so you can enjoy it throughout the day or whenever. Disadvantages: cars will get dusty unless you don't have them in a case or whatever, but generally this is good because you get to see the model, you get to hold the model throughout the day, and it's just nice to have. You can enjoy them. Another option that people often look at is investment. So that essentially means that you're going to be buying a model car, with the hope that's going to be worth something in the future. From my experience, I don't think that this is necessarily something that is worth pursuing, especially if you're getting budget cars. If you're purchasing budget cars, if you're like that, like me, it's definitely not going to be worth it, because these vehicles were mass produced. There's tons of them out there. They're easy to get. And you're not actually going to make much money in the future if you try to sell them. Sometimes you get lucky. Like I bought a $20 Cadillac Escalade by Rico, and after about 1 year, it was discontinued, and people were asking to buy it for $150. So that could have made sense, but I prefer to enjoy the car rather than to sell it. So again, it's really up to you. If you plan to purchase cars for investment, go with a higher end model. Hopefully it'll be worth something. I doubt it's going to be anything spectacular, but it's just one of the options. I had to mention it. The third one that I'm going to mention is modification, and that's why I have, let me just move all this out of the way. I have this Ford Crown Victoria here. Now, this particular model by Motor Max is notorious for its ability to be customized, and the reason why is because so many were made and they were really cheap that all the parts were interchangeable. So buying cars for modification, price is very important, especially if you're starting out, because you don't want to risk damaging something like an auto art when you might want to just start off with a budget car like this one. And, you know, if you scratch the paint or damage something, you can always just buy a new one and actually throw on the parts because they're so easy and cheap. So that's what I've done with this one. This has new wheels, a push bar, details on the on the interior like a laptop, you know, the radar on the back, license plate, all sorts of things. And another great thing about this, you have to find a car that comes apart easily. That can be very difficult. Some manufacturers are good at it, some are not. This one right here is actually a pain in the neck to take apart because you'll end up disconnecting the steering, and then you run into issues where you can't get the steering back in. And yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare once you take this car apart. And sometimes finding out is trial and error. You unscrew the bottom, and you end up realizing after you unscrewed it that you disconnected the steering and you have to fix it, and that's a pain. So I suppose I have had a lot of experience taking apart model cars, so I suppose if you wanted to look into doing modifications for yourself, like throwing on new wheels or suspension, there's many ways you can go about doing it, but you could always ask me or other model car enthusiasts on YouTube, and I'm sure they have done it themselves and they can offer you some advice. So yeah, so that's basically it. Just in summary, you have to choose a path that you want to go on to collect model cars. And one of the primary reasons is so 2 years down the line, if you choose to go, you know, maybe you want to collect 124 scale model cars, and then maybe a year later you decide, oh, well, actually I want to go for 18th scale. Well, now you have a bunch of 124 scale that you hopefully you'll still enjoy, but if you don't and you want to set them aside, then it's sort of a waste. So that's one of the reasons why I go with scale 118. By the way, that's what I would recommend, just from my experience. And so that's basically the reason why. Same thing with planning to modify cars. If you buy a bunch of auto arts and then you decide you want to modify, well, you can, but you're going to be risking putting a rare and expensive car getting damaged. And until you've kind of perfected your modification skills, I wouldn't recommend that. Alright, so I hope this was helpful. Just, you know, this is from my experience in collecting, and I hope this finds you well. Alright, thanks for watching.